Most men don't realize they're running out of time until it's already too late. Not for money, not for success, but for something far more important. If you're over 60, this isn't just a video, it's a warning, because the habits, regrets, and silent killers you ignore now are the same ones that leave most men bitter, broken, and forgotten. Stay until the end, because the final message, that's the one that could save your future. Hidden gold, deep within the subterranean chambers of every man who has traversed the long, arduous, and often bewildering path of many decades, there lies an extraordinary, largely untapped vein of hidden gold. This is not the common, easily accessible gold that glitters on the surface of worldly achievements, nor is it the fleeting currency of societal approval that so many spend their entire lives desperately seeking. No, this gold is of an entirely different order, infinitely more rare, immeasurably more precious, profoundly more enduring. It is an alchemical substance, meticulously forged in the intense, transformative fires of lived experience, distilled from the very essence of countless moments, both luminous and shadowed. Consider the silent, often solitary lessons learned in the stark face of heartbreaking loss, the quiet, unyielding resilience painstakingly forged in the unforgiving crucible of repeated adversity, the profound, boundless compassion that blossoms only after one's own heart has been shattered open and tenderly mended 1,000 times over, the unshakable diamond-like clarity that finally dawns after navigating through dense, disorienting fogs of confusion, doubt, and existential angst. This is the gold of embodied wisdom, the pure bullion of authentic character. Yet society, with its insatiable appetite for the new, the fast, the superficially brilliant, and the easily consumable, has become tragically blind to this subtle inner luminescence. It has systematically trained its eyes, and indeed, it has conditioned your own eyes over a lifetime to seek and recognize value only in the external, in the tangible, in the quantifiable achievements that can be readily displayed, measured, compared, and ultimately commodified. And so, this invaluable inner gold, this sacred repository of profound, lived understanding, often remains buried, dormant, languishing beneath thick layers of ingrained societal conditioning, beneath the accumulated, unexamined dust of past regrets and unspoken sorrows, or hidden beneath the heavy, constricting cloak of outdated identities and roles that no longer serve your deepest, most authentic truth. You may have been subtly, persistently taught to view the lines etched upon your face not as sacred maps charting a journey of immense courage, profound learning, and remarkable endurance, but as mere, unwelcome signs of physical decay and diminishing relevance. You may have been implicitly or explicitly encouraged to silence the quiet, resonant voice of your accumulated experience, deeming its wisdom outdated, its pace too slow, its perspective irrelevant in a world that worships the fleeting idol of novelty and instant gratification above all else. But the hard truth, the potent secret that the prevailing culture dare not speak too loudly lest it disrupt its own fragile illusions, is that this hidden gold, this inner treasure, is the very bedrock of true, unshakable strength, the inexhaustible source of authentic, abiding peace, and the luminous wellspring of a profound wisdom that can offer genuine guidance, deep solace, and transformative healing to a world desperately, tragically starving for depth, meaning, and authentic connection. The arduous yet profoundly rewarding process of excavating this personal gold requires a courageous, unwavering turning inward, a sustained willingness to sift with patience and compassion through the perceived rubble and debris of your past, not to dwell morbidly on what might have been or what was lost, but to lovingly, meticulously reclaim the precious, hard-won insights, the resilient, often invisible strengths, the refined, enduring qualities of character that were uniquely forged in the very heart of those challenging experiences. It is the sacred alchemy of transforming the leaden weight of past regrets into the luminous gold of present understanding, the bitter dregs of past disappointments into the sweet, healing nectar of boundless compassion for yourself and for all beings. This is undeniably not a task for the faint of heart, nor for those unwilling to confront their own shadows, for it requires the courage to face the totality of your being, to embrace your imperfections with tenderness, and to make a deep, abiding peace with the entirety of your unique, unrepeatable journey. Yet, within this sacred excavation, this inner archaeology of the soul, lies the master key to unlocking a profound, unshakable sense of self-acceptance, an unwavering inner authority, and an intrinsic dignity that no external circumstance, no societal judgment, no personal loss can ever diminish or extinguish. This hidden gold is your unique, sacred inheritance, your soul's most precious treasure, patiently, silently waiting to be brought forth into the light, not for boastful, egoic display, but to profoundly enrich your own being, to illuminate your remaining path with wisdom and grace, and to subtly yet powerfully light the way for those who walk alongside you and for those generations who will inevitably come after. It is the quiet, undeniable radiance of a life fully met, fully embraced, a wisdom that speaks not in loud, assertive pronouncements, but in the gentle, healing resonance of a deeply integrated, authentic, and compassionate presence. To continue to neglect this immense inner wealth is to condemn oneself to live in a state of self-imposed spiritual poverty, regardless of any external abundance one might have accumulated. To courageously reclaim it, to polish it, and to allow its light to shine forth is to finally step into the true, sovereign kingdom of your own magnificent being. Quiet Roar. Once you embark upon this sacred, often challenging, yet profoundly rewarding work of uncovering and claiming the hidden gold within your own being, you will inevitably begin to connect with, and indeed embody, an entirely different kind of power. A strength that possesses a quality and resonance far removed from the often aggressive, externally focused energies pursued in earlier stages of life. This is the quiet roar of your authentic self, the deep, resonant frequency of a spirit that has courageously weathered innumerable storms, faced countless challenges, and now stands, not in belligerent defiance or arrogant pride, but in profound, unshakable integrity and serene self-possession. This intrinsic power is vastly, qualitatively different from the often reactive, ego-driven force that many men, particularly in their younger, more turbulent and insecure years, relentlessly chase: the power to control outcomes, to conquer perceived enemies, to accumulate vast material possessions, to impress and dominate others. That kind of externally derived power, while it may indeed bring fleeting moments of egoic satisfaction or societal recognition, is ultimately dependent on external validation, on the approval and acquiescence of others, and is therefore inherently fragile, perpetually susceptible to the capricious, shifting winds of fortune, circumstance, and public opinion. The quiet roar, however, emanates from a much deeper, more reliable, and infinitely more sustainable source. It is the unwavering, indomitable strength of the ancient, weathered mountain, which has silently witnessed the dramatic rise and inevitable fall of empires, the cyclical changing of countless seasons, the endless, often tragicomic drama of human existence, yet remains steadfast, serene, its silent, imposing majesty a timeless testament to enduring presence and profound resilience. It is the potent, transformative power of profound stillness, the immense, subtle gravitational pull of a consciousness that is deeply, unshakably rooted in its own luminous center, unswayed and undisturbed by the superficial chaos, the incessant noise, and the often overwhelming demands of the external world. In the later, more contemplative seasons of life, the frantic, often utterly exhausting compulsion to constantly prove oneself, to relentlessly compete for recognition, to be seen, heard, and acknowledged at all costs, can begin to naturally, gracefully subside if you consciously allow it the space and permission to do so. What beautifully emerges in its place, if mindfully cultivated and patiently nurtured, is the profound, liberating strength of simply being, fully, authentically present in each unfolding moment, deeply anchored in your own truth, without hidden agenda, without protective pretense, without the need to perform or impress. This is a quality of strength, a form of power that our hyperactive, relentlessly output-obsessed modern society often fails utterly to comprehend, much less to genuinely value or respect. It is frequently, tragically, mistaken for passivity, for disengagement, for a lamentable lack of ambition, or even for a sign of encroaching senility. But the profound truth, known to those who have walked the path of inner cultivation, is that this quiet roar of authentic presence, this unwavering embodiment of inner peace, holds a subtle yet formidable power that can move worlds, not through overt force, aggressive imposition, or loud manipulation, but through gentle resonance, through the silent, compassionate transmission of deep wisdom, unshakable peace, and unconditional love. The graceful detachment that can, and often does, beautifully blossom with advancing age, a gentle, liberating loosening of the fierce, often desperate and ultimately painful grip on specific outcomes, on cherished but outdated identities, on the compulsive need to be right or to control, is not, as some may fear, a sign of gloomy resignation or life-denying apathy. It is, in fact, a sacred gateway to profound clarity, to a way of seeing and experiencing life as it truly is, stripped bare of the distorting emotional projections, the deeply ingrained inherited biases, the fear-based illusions, and the self-serving egoic distortions that so often cloud and confuse younger, less experienced perception. The hard, liberating truth, the one that directly challenges the very foundations of a shallow materialistic worldview, is that true, enduring and transformative power is found not in relentless, exhausting external striving or accumulation, but in profound, consistent internal mastery and spiritual cultivation. It is discovered in the developed capacity for deep empathetic listening, both to the quiet whispers of your own soul and to the spoken and unspoken needs of others. It is found in the unwavering courage to embrace authentic vulnerability as a source of connection and strength. It is forged in the steadfast commitment to practicing boundless compassion, even, and especially, in the face of profound adversity, misunderstanding, or injustice. It is embodied in the profound, unshakable peace that naturally radiates from a heart that has made deep and lasting peace with itself and with the totality of existence. This quiet roar is the authentic, unobscured voice of your soul, finally liberated from the incessant, demanding clamor of the ego. It is the gentle, yet irresistible force that naturally draws others towards your wisdom, your counsel, your presence, not because you command or demand their attention, but because they are instinctively, soulfully drawn to the authentic light, the profound stillness, and the unwavering compassion that you have come to embody. This intrinsic power does not diminish with the passage of years. On the contrary, it refines, it deepens, it concentrates, it becomes infinitely more potent, more pure, more impactful. It is the precious, hard-won inheritance of those rare individuals who have dared to walk the often challenging inner path, to courageously face their own inner dragons, their own shadows and illusions, and to emerge from those sacred battles, not unscathed, perhaps, but undeniably, magnificently whole. To consciously cultivate and confidently embody this quiet roar is to stand in your full, unadorned, authentic sovereignty, a silent, luminous testament to the enduring, transformative power of the awakened human spirit. Unseen Crown. As you diligently continue this sacred inner work, consciously cultivating this profound, quiet roar that is rooted in the inexhaustible richness of your reclaimed hidden gold, you will find that you naturally begin to wear an unseen crown. This is not a crown of earthly dominion, wrought from precious metals and adorned with glittering jewels, to be displayed for the admiration or envy of others. This is a diadem of inherent, unshakable dignity and profound self-respect, a luminous insignia of your true spiritual sovereignty that requires no external anointing, no societal approval, no official recognition, no material insignia whatsoever, to validate its radiant existence or confirm its intrinsic worth. This unseen crown is forged not from the fleeting ephemeral currency of worldly achievements, prestigious titles, or accumulated possessions, all of which are ultimately illusory, subject to the relentless tides of change and decay, but from the unwavering, deeply embodied knowing of your intrinsic unconditional worth as a human being, a worth that is not contingent upon what you do, what you have, or what others think of you, but is an inherent quality of your very existence, a spark of the divine woven into the fabric of your being. It is the resplendent crown of profound self-acceptance, polished to a brilliant sheen by the compassionate, unconditional embrace of your entire life story, with all its perceived imperfections, its unexpected detours, its moments of dazzling brilliance, and its periods of profound initiatory shadow. In a world that relentlessly, almost cruelly, bombards us from birth to death with subtle and overt messages of inadequacy, that constantly urges us to seek validation, approval, and a sense of worthiness outside of ourselves, to neurotically measure our value against impossible, arbitrary, and ever-shifting external standards. The courageous act of consciously claiming and wearing this unseen crown is a truly radical revolutionary act of profound spiritual liberation. It is a quiet yet powerful declaration of independence from the insidious tyranny of external opinion, a firm, unwavering standing in the undeniable, sacred truth of your own inviolable, magnificent being. The man who consciously wears this unseen crown moves through the world with a markedly different kind of presence, an aura of quiet authority and profound serenity that is palpable to those around him. There is a discernible lightness in his step, even if his physical body now carries the accumulated weight and wisdom of many years, for he is unburdened by the desperate, exhausting need to constantly impress, to perform, or to prove his worth to anyone. There is a penetrating clarity in his gaze, for he has learned to see beyond the superficial masks, the carefully constructed pretenses, and the fear-driven illusions that so many people unconsciously adopt as they navigate the complexities of life. There is an expansive warmth in his heart, a boundless compassion that flows freely, for he has made deep and lasting peace with his own complex humanity, with all its inherent contradictions and vulnerabilities, and can therefore meet the full humanity of others with genuine empathy, profound understanding, and unconditional acceptance. This unseen crown is also, most significantly, the crown of true, enduring legacy. We are often taught by a society focused on the material and the measurable that legacy is primarily about the tangible things we manage to accumulate and leave behind, the wealth we amass, the monuments we build, the institutions we establish, the descendants who carry our name. And while these things may indeed have their place and their own form of significance, the most profound, most lasting, and most transformative legacy is not etched in stone or recorded in bank accounts. It is delicately, powerfully woven from the intangible, luminous threads of our being, the consistent quality of our presence, the unwavering depth of our love, the embodied wisdom we share through our actions and our being, the profound peace we radiate into the world simply by existing authentically. It is the subtle, far-reaching ripple effect of a life lived with unwavering integrity, unyielding courage, genuine humility, and boundless compassion. An influence that often extends far beyond our conscious knowing or immediate perception, touching hearts, inspiring minds, and shaping lives in ways we may never fully comprehend this side of eternity. The hard, often resisted truth, one that our fiercely achievement-oriented and youth-idolizing culture struggles profoundly to grasp, is that your greatest, most impactful contribution in these precious later years may very well not be found in more doing, more striving, more building, or more accumulating, but rather in the profound resonant quality of your being. It is not about adding yet more accomplishments to an already lengthy resume, but about consciously deepening the luminous resonance of your soul, about polishing the mirror of your consciousness until it reflects the pure light of truth. The elder who gracefully wears this unseen crown, who naturally embodies this quiet yet profound dignity, becomes a living sanctuary, a vital source of grounding, wisdom, and unconditional love for those who are still caught in the turbulent, often confusing currents of worldly striving and egoic pursuits. His very presence itself becomes a powerful, silent teaching, a living, breathing reminder of what truly matters in the grand scheme of existence. He doesn't necessarily need to offer unsolicited advice, deliver lengthy discourses, or engage in overt acts of guidance. His very way of being, his characteristic calm in the midst of storms, his profound acceptance of what is, his gentle, knowing humor, his unwavering, compassionate gaze, speaks volumes more eloquently than any words could ever convey. This is not a passive state of resignation, but an active, dynamic embodiment of years, often decades, of dedicated inner work, of conscious spiritual cultivation, of courageous shadow integration. It is the unmistakable radiance of a spirit that has finally, joyfully, come home to itself, that rests securely and peacefully in its own inherent, timeless majesty. To consciously claim and wear this unseen crown is to courageously affirm your rightful sacred place in the grand, intricate tapestry of existence, not as a fading, irrelevant thread, but as a vital, luminous, and indispensable strand, contributing its unique, irreplaceable hue and intricate texture to the magnificent, unfolding whole. It is to recognize with every fiber of your being that your life, in its magnificent, messy, and sacred entirety, is a precious offering, and that your final chapters, far from being a period of decline, can be the most beautiful, the most resonant, the most profoundly meaningful, and the most spiritually fruitful of all. Sacred letting, the often winding, sometimes challenging, yet ultimately liberating path to authentically wearing this unseen crown, to fully embodying that resonant, quiet roar, is meticulously, patiently paved with the profound spiritual practice of sacred letting, a continuous, conscious, and often profoundly courageous act of release that gradually becomes the central, most vital spiritual discipline of life's later, more contemplative seasons. This is not, as it is so frequently and tragically misunderstood by a culture terrified of emptiness and addicted to accumulation, a passive, sorrowful surrender to inevitable decay, nor is it a mournful, reluctant resignation to unavoidable loss. Rather, sacred letting, when understood and practiced from a place of wisdom, is an active, courageous, and exhilaratingly liberating engagement with the fundamental, undeniable truth of impermanence. A wholehearted, graceful embrace of the natural, cyclical rhythm of arising, abiding, and passing away that governs every aspect of manifest existence, from the grandest galaxies to the most fleeting thought. For many decades, you have likely and often unconsciously been engaged in a process of accumulation, not just the amassing of material possessions, which can themselves become heavy anchors, but also the accumulation of identities, roles, beliefs, opinions, emotional attachments, deeply ingrained grievances, and rigid, often unrealistic, expectations of yourself, of others, and of life itself. You have painstakingly, often with great effort, built intricate fortresses around your ego, carefully constructed and fiercely defended narratives about who you are, what you stand for, what you are entitled to, and what you fear losing. And while these psychological and emotional structures may have provided a temporary sense of security, identity, or purpose in earlier phases of your life, they can, in the later chapters, transform into heavy, burdensome chains, constricting, suffocating prisons that prevent your soul from soaring into its fullest, most expansive, and most authentic expression. Sacred letting, therefore, involves the meticulous, compassionate, and often painstaking dismantling of these outdated, life-denying structures. It is the unwavering willingness to look with unflinching, courageous honesty at the myriad attachments that still bind you, that subtly or overtly still cause you suffering, that persistently prevent you from experiencing the profound, unshakable peace and quiet joy that is, in fact, your inherent birthright. This profound practice may involve the conscious, deliberate letting go of deeply ingrained, often cherished regrets, those persistent, haunting ghosts of the past that whisper insidious tales of if only, and what if, relentlessly pulling your precious attention away from the vibrant aliveness and sacred potential of the ever-present now. It means courageously releasing the fierce, often unconscious grip on specific outcomes, on the deeply conditioned need for life to unfold neatly according to your meticulously crafted, ego-driven plans, and instead, consciously cultivating a deep, abiding trust in the unfolding, often mysterious wisdom of life itself, recognizing that there is a larger intelligence at play. It requires the courageous, often humbling, surrender of cherished, long-held identities. The identity of the successful executive, the revered expert, the strong, infallible patriarch, the indispensable provider. Roles that, while once central and perhaps even essential to your sense of self, may now be subtly obscuring the emergence of a deeper, more authentic, and infinitely more expansive self. A self that is not primarily defined by its doing, its accomplishments, or its external roles, but by the luminous quality of its being, its presence, its essence. It is about consciously relinquishing the often unconscious, deeply ingrained addiction to being right, the compulsive need to win every argument, to have the last word, to assert your intellectual or moral superiority, and instead, consistently choosing the higher path of peace, mutual understanding, genuine connection, and compassionate dialogue. The hard, often fiercely resisted truth, the one that the ego, in its desperate bid for self-preservation, vehemently denies, is that our deepest, most persistent suffering often arises not directly from the challenging circumstances of our lives, but from our fierce, unyielding, and ultimately futile attachment to how we believe those circumstances should be, how we should be, how others should be. We desperately cling to fleeting pleasure and vehemently resist unavoidable pain. We frantically grasp for illusory security and deeply fear inherent uncertainty. We stubbornly fight against the natural, inevitable flow of change, and in doing so, we create immense, exhausting inner friction, profound psycho-emotional tension, and pervasive, life-draining dis-ease. Sacred letting is the powerful, gentle antidote to this self-inflicted suffering. It is the mindful, graceful yet potent act of consciously opening your clenched hand, of releasing your tightened fist, of allowing the river of life, with all its currents and eddies, to flow freely through you without resistance, without judgment, without clinging. This transformative practice creates precious, invaluable space, inner space, emotional space, mental space, spiritual space. And in that newfound liberating spaciousness, something entirely new, incredibly beautiful, and profoundly healing can finally arise. A deep, unshakable sense of inner freedom, a palpable lightness of being, a quiet, unconditional joy that is not dependent on external conditions or circumstances, and a profound, abiding connection to the timeless, luminous sanctuary of the present moment. It is in essence a conscious emptying of the vessel of the self, not to become a desolate void, but to become fully, joyfully available to be filled with the pure, unfiltered light of unconditioned awareness, with the boundless, unconditional compassion of an open, undefended heart. This is not a one-time monumental event, a single act of grand renunciation, but rather an ongoing, moment-by-moment practice, a daily conscious choosing of freedom over bondage, of expansive peace over constricting conflict, of graceful surrender over exhausting, futile struggle. It is the sacred, transformative art of dying to the old, the outdated, the illusory, in each unfolding moment, so that you can be continuously, gloriously reborn into the luminous, liberating truth of who you truly, authentically are, beyond all names, all forms, all concepts, all limitations. Final horizon. And as you courageously, patiently, and diligently walk this profound inner path, the path of uncovering and sharing your invaluable hidden gold, of embodying and radiating your resonant, quiet roar, of gracefully wearing your inherent unseen crown, and of consistently, compassionately practicing the sacred, liberating art of letting go, you will inevitably find yourself approaching the final horizon of this earthly journey, not with mounting trepidation, overwhelming fear, or bitter resentment, but rather with a profound, burgeoning sense of deep curiosity, radical acceptance, and perhaps even a quiet, reverent, and inexplicable awe. The prevailing societal narrative surrounding mortality, the one most of us have been deeply conditioned by since birth, is predominantly one of pervasive dread, of an ultimate, undeniable defeat, a final tragic ending to be resisted, denied, and postponed at all conceivable costs. But this too, it must be understood, is a perspective born from a limited, purely material and ultimately illusory understanding of existence, a view that fails to encompass the vaster, more expansive spiritual realities. From a deeper, more inclusive spiritual vantage point, this final horizon, this transition we call death, is not a terrifying nihilistic abyss into which we helplessly fall, but rather a magnificent sacred gateway, a profound transformative transition into a vaster, more luminous and infinitely more expansive reality, a conscious, joyful merging with the very source, the boundless, unmanifest consciousness from which all life, all forms, all experiences originally emanate, and to which they ultimately, peacefully return. The pervasive fear of death, that primal anxiety which consciously or unconsciously drives so much of human striving, so much neurotic ambition, so much interpersonal conflict, and so much existential suffering, begins to naturally, gradually lose its formidable, paralyzing power when you have diligently, consistently cultivated a deep experiential connection with the timeless, formless, luminous essence of your own being. That indestructible part of you, that pure awareness, that was never truly born in the conventional sense and can therefore never truly die. When you have repeatedly, directly tasted the profound, unshakable peace of the present moment, when you have experienced firsthand the boundless, exhilarating freedom that comes from courageously letting go of egoic attachments, identifications, and fears, the idea of the body's eventual, inevitable dissolution no longer holds the same terrifying, all-consuming grip upon your consciousness. You begin to understand, not merely as an intellectual concept, but as a deeply felt, embodied realization in the very cells of your being, that you are infinitely more than this transient physical form, infinitely more than this accumulated collection of memories and fleeting experiences, infinitely more than this limited, conditioned individual personality with its likes, dislikes, hopes, and fears.